Welcome to At Scale, the Tennessee Achieves podcast. I'm Chrissy D'Alejandro, Tennessee Achieves President and CEO. Tennessee Achieves seeks to be humble but ambitious, disruptive yet intentional, and student-focused while also data-driven. We believe our mission is simple: enhance post-secondary opportunities and outcomes by providing holistic student supports rooted in community and accountability at scale. But the work is much more complex. Since 2008, we've broken some things in a great way. We've built many things, and we've created something that stems from the idea that a college credential can be a powerful equalizer. From helping individual students navigate the complexities of college to shaping the way Tennessee thinks about preparing and educating tomorrow's workforce, this podcast explores how Tennessee Achieves intersects with partners across our state and throughout the country. Let's dig in with state and national thought partners, business and industry leaders, college and K-12 representatives, and all the others in between that inform, inspire, and interconnect with Tennessee Achieves work. Here we go. Welcome to the At Scale podcast. I'm Chrissy D'Alejandro, joined by Ben Sterling. Ben, we're back at it again. I'm so excited. I think I'd start off with saying I'm so excited. All the guests we've had so far have been amazing, and today is no exception.
Yep, agreed. Today's guest, to me, it's interesting. All of our programs have been inspired at some point oftentimes by work that's happened outside of Tennessee, and we've tried to leverage their wins to scale up programs here. And I think there's no better guest to have today than this one, because it's really inspiring. The heart of really what Tennessee Achieves has been doing for the last 3 or 4 years has really been inspired by the work that our guest is going to share with us today. So I think for our listeners, this will be a really good conversation to get a grasp on why our complete program is structured the way that it is, and really the goals behind all of our coaches. Really inspired by the work from our guests. So I'll let you do the intro.
Well, it's only fitting that I feel like I do the intro because, baby Chrissy over a decade ago made a trip to see this person to learn and to dig in. And so it was a really sweaty summer day, like I said, about 10 years ago, that I stroll in with all these folders to meet Donna Linderman and talk about all the amazing work that she was currently building for students in New York. And I remember walking out thinking she is the rock star of student success, really an architect. I mean, as I was thinking this morning about all of the amazing things I could say about Donna. First of all, she's incredibly kind. She shows up in such a supportive way for others in this space, but she's really built something that has transcended. I can't go anywhere in the country when someone's not talking about Donna and talking about her work and asking if I know her. And I'm like, not only do I know her, but we met so many years ago, and I was so thankful that she brought me into her orbit. Before we jump in, I would like to note that Donna currently serves as the Senior Vice Chancellor for Student Success at SUNY. So she's known for CUNY work, right, but has transitioned to SUNY and is making waves there. So Donna, welcome to the At Scale podcast.
Thank you, Chrissy and Ben. It is my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're for our Tennessee listeners, let's define CUNY and SUNY. What's CUNY and SUNY?
Yes, very good question. And the most important question. So the State University of New York is the largest fully integrated higher education system in the country. We have 64 campuses across the entire state of New York, community colleges, technical colleges, regional comprehensives, R1 universities, medical schools, law schools, the whole gamut.
Got it.
The City University of New York is a 25 institution, also fully integrated system within the city, the 5 boroughs of the city of New York. So we have 2 integrated systems operating within New York, not unlike the systems in the state of California where I'm from. But these are 2 major systems that operate within New York. And I'm very proud to have been connected with both of them in my career.
Yeah, truly incredible. All the acronyms, right? We're going to be deep in acronyms today, guys.
I'll do my best to call them out when I can.
I hope you do. So hang on tight. Donna, I would love first just what got you to New York? So that not originally where you started your work, but what
Yeah.
took you there?
So I'm original. I think you remember from our very first conversation, which I have nothing but fond memories of. I'm originally from Southern California. I grew up, I was a typical California weed. We moved constantly up and down the coast. Um, I originally, I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. Um, I ended up at USC. I was very focused on theater. I was trained as an actor and a director, came to New York to pursue theater, but education was always a very strong through line for me. Teachers and school really saved my life. It was so important to me I did not have a particularly great education and a somewhat challenging childhood at times, but school was always a bit of a constant. And I always had some teachers and advisors and counselors who believed in me. And while I loved being an actor and directing plays and being involved in theater, I also felt like a real calling to teach and to give back. So, as many actors do when you come to the Big Apple, you always have some kind of a side hustle. So, my side hustle was working as a teaching artist. I worked in public schools doing residencies. And as I kind of moved forward, I taught some acting classes at Bard College, filling in for a friend of mine when he was away. And I realized how much I loved teaching. So, I segued into faculty. I became a faculty member at Brooklyn College. But that kind of bug of always wanting to give back and to teach, I was always involved in theater education. So I helped create some initiatives while I was there, and then had the opportunity to kind of move up into a system role to help create and be part of a unit that created programs that addressed kind of barriers to students. So something that was always near and dear to my heart, which is removing barriers for others. I was thrilled to become part of a unit that really that's what we did every single day. And it was in that space within the CUNY system office of academic affairs that I had the opportunity to help create and build and scale programs like ASAP and ACE and CUNY Start and others with an amazing, amazing team of people who they really got it and were deeply committed to this work, not only from an advocacy stance, but a belief that it made the city a better place. That's kind of how I landed where I landed professionally. And I always say, I bring my theater training into every single thing I do. There
I
was no
bet you
better
do.
training for what I do every day than having gone to theater school and making plays and working kind of as a team. So
Well, you're a builder, right? Like you're a
I
person
think
who
so.
builds things.
That's a name I would proudly wear. Yes.
Yeah, no, I would 100% call you a builder. I love this because you had classroom experience with students that you later built programs, scaled programs,
Yes.
have picked up and moved programs to different places. How did that, before we talk about ASAP and ACE and START and all of these amazing programs, how do you think that teaching role informed
Mhm.
all of this work?
So I think that's a great question. I always would say if someone said to me right now, like you have to make a decision, can only do one thing for the rest of your life, I would probably go back to the classroom because I feel like the opportunity to engage with students in a reciprocal way, to interrogate information, to see how other people learn, to help them kind of enhance their understanding of subject matter, of the world around them, and of themselves is just such an incredible gift and opportunity. And to see a group of students kind of grow from the beginning of a class, which is like you're going on a journey together with them, and to see how they are different and you are different at the end of the class or the semester is just such an incredibly gratifying feeling.
Mm.
So I think that sense of you can really make a difference in the way someone understands the world and themselves is something that I have carried with me into what I do every day. That individual people, teachers, counselors, people that build programs can make a real difference in people's lives. That's something I very much carried over with me from teaching. I also remember it from my own days as a student when I
Sure.
when I took a great class and a teacher or a faculty member changed the way I thought of myself or the world. It was profound, and it's something I remember to this day. So I think that's a bit of the through line that I would carry through.
Yeah, it's foundational. So, when we started Knox Achieves, we approached the community college president at the time, Alan Edwards at Pellissippi State, about what do you think about us stepping into this nonprofit space and working to help your students get more of your students get to the finish line. And he asked me, he said, what experience do you have on a community college campus? And I said, I have zero. And so for 3 years, I taught political science and college success at Pellissippi State, and it has stayed with me. In fact, Ben not only was a Knox Achieve student, but he was my student in my political science class. So you guys can talk offline about my teaching prowess, but it was eye-opening for me because I'd gone to a small, affluent liberal arts school as a first generation student. So I carried my own experience going there, but I had never been on a community college campus to see all the rich diversity of thought and age and it was really remarkable and really informed a lot of the way we thought about the work in the early days of the program. And so I think foundational. So start with ASAP. What is ASAP? I think that was sort of the mothership, if you will. So we'll start there and we'll build.
Yeah, so it was one of those, I remember having this conversation with you when we sat in person at my office at the CUNY Central office. So the kind of genesis of ASAP really came out of this confluence of kind of the priorities of CUNY's then Chancellor, Matthew Goldstein, who was deeply concerned with the low completion rates at our community colleges. Mm. He was a statistician, a brilliant administrator, came from the four-year context, but obviously we had 6 community colleges within CUNY with booming enrollment, in like 2005, 2006. And it really concerned him that we had such high numbers of students who came to our community colleges who just were not retained and graduating at a rate. It was abysmal. It was in the, low teens, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. At the same moment, and there was lots of innovation going on, different initiatives looking at first year experience, but everything was kind of not really moving the needle. And at the same moment, our then mayor, Michael Bloomberg, created his Center for Economic Opportunity, CEO, which was about funding data-driven projects that would comprehensively address the needs of specific groups of low-income New Yorkers for whom, an intervention could make a difference in their future economic prospects in some way. And a call was put out across the city for responses. And the groups were children under 5, young adults between 16 and 24 who weren't connected with education, or the working poor, people who had jobs but were really living under the poverty line. And the call was put out, we're looking for responses to this. So our chancellor saw this opportunity. We should put forward a comprehensive response, because those last 2 groups, 16 to 24-year-olds and the working poor, that's who come to CUNY community colleges. Mm-hmm. So it was this incredible kind of confluence of priorities of, hey, we both have mutual needs, the mayor's economic development needs and the desire for our chancellor for us to do better. So it was really one of those right place, right moments, comes along once in a lifetime, where we saw this is an opportunity here. Mm-hmm. So the idea was, what would happen if we pulled together kind of all of the separate kind of interventions that seem to maybe be having, some impact to help students, feel connected and to take full-time load and to remove financial barriers. So it was kind of just originally this general concept of comprehensive integrated set services and to get students through faster. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the initial genesis of the moment. And the mayor's office funded CUNY to launch a 3-year pilot that would operate across all of our then 6 community colleges. So it literally started out with, hey, this is a great opportunity. We should jump on this. Mm-hmm. What it then became was something, I don't think any of us could have imagined that were initially part of this group. So the basic skeleton of the model. To that, we added this idea of very, very integrated use of data to carefully monitor students through their progress. The notion of kind of a triage advisement model. And by that, I mean thinking about, how you would assess students' needs, their academic needs, their personal needs, are they participating in the program? And to really kind of triage how you support and serve them from start to finish. So kind of shifting kind of aspects of the model, the core dimensions were always there. The idea of helping students get through quickly, the notion that we would support them from start to finish, but the idea that we would kind of mold the way we worked with them to help, really kind of zero in on their needs, and this idea of integrating data and to really looking carefully about the way the program was administered. That is really kind of when the kind of leaves appeared on the tree, if you will, and the program kind of blossomed into what people know it is today.
Yeah, I love how your program really started from this. It wasn't just your idea; it was sort of like there was an observation of a need in the community, and from a municipal leadership standpoint, said we need some intervention here. There's people that are struggling, and then from a system, you guys were like, well, we can do something like that. Very similar to how we got started, and a lot of the work that we do here continues to be inspired by that. But I guess my question for you is, like, if another state or city is seeing the same challenge, what advice do you have from the government side, if they're interested in trying to fund this type of work or inspire this type of work in their community? What advice would you have for another state? We had someone that came to visit from Alabama recently, and it sounds like there's actually some similar funding going on there to help fund some experimental work at different institutions. So, like, I guess if you had somebody from another state listening, what advice would you have for them to kind of get this thing around?
I want to hop in here before she answers, though. Like, you've picked this up now and you've moved it. So I don't want to miss that step in this process, right? Like, so before you maybe give the advice, Ben's jumping ahead, which we tend to do here.
That's okay. That's fine. I was going to put it in there anyways, but
I knew you would, but I had to say, like, all right, like, you've picked it up and moved it. Hence, like, advice comes from a rich understanding of doing this in more than one place, which I think is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle.
So one of the things that was really important to us, and again, I always say I was part of just an absolutely phenomenal team, with tremendous leadership, and my colleagues at CUNY were just like the absolute best. Like, we were just such a great group of thought partners and innovators and problem solvers that I just feel very, very lucky to have been part of that ethos. So one of the things that was really important from the beginning of ASAP is we really carefully monitored not just student progress, but we shared our outcomes and kind of pushed and pulled how we were looking at what we were doing with our city partners. So we were funded by the City of New York's Center for Economic Opportunity. I did not consider them our funders. They were our partners. So we worked closely with them on what is the best way to tell this story of the outcomes were pretty spectacular almost from the beginning. We set this very, very ambitious goal. Our chancellor, Matthew Goldstein, set this ambitious goal that we were going to graduate 50% of the students that we served within 3 years. The 3-year completion rate at CUNY community colleges when we started this was about 13 or 14%. So the fact that we were going to move the needle that dramatically was very ambitious. 2 years in, we were already at 30%, and we're like, oh, we are 100% going to make this. But we worked with our city partners about the best way to tell that story so that the success of the program was as much CUNY's as theirs. So that was very, very important, that we were always finding opportunities to more rigorously evaluate the program, to not just share the data with our city partners, but to write about it, to find forums where we could put this in front of different stakeholders, testifying in front of the city council as part of CUNY's work to talk about funding. But that was very important. It was not just a question of give us the money, we'll go off and do something, we'll come back later and tell you how we did. So there was very much a dialogue and a partnership.
Yeah.
And I learned so much about that. I learned that government actors and stakeholders, they are incredibly important to the work, making sure that the program that they're funding is speaking the language that is important to them, to economic development, and to talking about how it's helping the mayor or the governor or whomever realize their goals is absolutely critical. So our funding was baselined pretty early on, so that it was made a permanent allocation to CUNY. When a new administration came in under Mayor de Blasio, he had lots of opportunities to think about how he was going to fund different priorities at CUNY, but he zeroed in on ASAP because he saw the impact of the program because our data was so solid, and we were inviting kind of external evaluators in to come and look at this. As early as we had good solid data, Ben, we were open to kind of helping other locations think about how they could replicate the model. So very early on, we started working with 3 colleges in the state of Ohio in partnership with MDRC. And fast forward, the program has now been replicated in 8 states at 40 institutions. So, we were very, the team that I used to supervise at CUNY was there's now a full national replication collaborative team embedded at CUNY that does this work across the country. But the response to your question is, because in the early days, I would go out and sit with colleges and other places and leadership, and I would tell them it is absolutely critical, if you're not already doing that you are sitting down with your county, your city, your state, officials and talking about how this is going to help them solve some of their economic development problems and connect it up to those legislative priorities. It is absolutely critical that you do that. I remember fairly early on, our colleagues out in San Mateo County, California, that were at the community college district office. I remember sitting with them saying, if you're not already in those meetings, you got to bring the data, to them on a regular basis. And because they said, yeah, this isn't a line item in our county budget, but it could be. And a year later, the gentleman I sat with, I think in the same office I met with you, Chrissy, called me and he said, we just got an allocation in the county budget for the first time because we use that strategy. So I think that is so critically important to think about. And it's not that it's easy work. It's a space that I knew nothing about. I had not been involved in kind of government work in any way, shape, or form. But I feel like I learned so much about that. And I certainly, now that I'm here at the State University of New York, our chancellor, he is just a master of that. He is so good at talking about how the priorities of the university are directly linked to the priorities of the governor and the legislature. And so we're constantly making that case. I think that's how we've been so incredibly fortunate. We have a very visionary governor and legislature, but that's my advice to other folks who want to do this is don't think of this as something you have to go out and just raise some grant money for. Find a way to connect this to the priorities of your government stakeholders.
That's really good advice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think what strikes me, Donna, as you talk now, and I think this struck me a decade ago, is that this is really all about integration, right? Like when you talk about even ASAP starting, and you said this, like it was these things all existed in somewhat of a silo, and part of it is sort of the gathering of, right? So being really intentional about and thoughtful about how this is packaged to students. But it's also what you just said, I think really resonates with me because it's also incredibly important how you package it to the external and how the work you're doing is not, yes, it's about more students to a credential, incredibly important, but it's about bigger things, right? It's about solving the problems of the places where these students exist, whether that's, workforce development challenges. I mean, you can draw a lot of throughputs here, crime, whatever. I think what really has set your work apart from my vantage point, what makes it so sexy, is all the focus on the data, right? Like, I'm guessing that there's not a data point that I could ask you about the work you're doing right now that you won't know the answer to. Why is that so important to you? Why has it been so important to the work?
So I think that it's very easy in higher education to talk about what you want to do. It's very easy to say, we have a lot of catchphrases that, oh, early alerts and first year seminars and intentional advisement. So it's easy to kind of talk about these concepts, which have been around for a while in some way, shape, or form. But if you don't have the data to actually say, and this is what it looks like, this is what it means for actual students. We want to help more students go full time. Okay. Are you looking at the registrations? Are you looking at credits attempted and earned? Are you looking at kind of the trajectory over 1, 2, 3 semesters, looking at if you don't have the data that actually says we're doing this, it's just a lot of words. Or it's just a tech platform that people buy and say, yeah, we use the fill in the blank platform. So it's kind of like a Hollywood movie set. There's no there. If you go behind it, it's just a flat surface. So the data kind of really fleshes out your story and makes it real. And behind every data point is a real student.
Right.
And we have the responsibility. I really genuinely believe that we have the responsibility to say, if we're taking these funds from, in the case of ASAP, the city and the state here at SUNY or any of our visionary funders who have supported it, we have the responsibility to them to use the money wisely, but we have the responsibility to the students to say, are we really doing what we say we're going to do? So it's almost like the flesh on the bones, the building out kind of the set, if you will, to make it real. And it's very, very important from a program management point of view, I feel. So every individual that works in programs like ASAP or ACE, we explain to them, if you're an advisor, you're a director, whatever, you are going to get comfortable kind of using data in your day-to-day practice. And not just because we need it for reporting purposes, which of course we do, but it's also about, are we actually doing on a day-to-day basis what we say we're going to do? If I'm an advisor and I have a caseload of 150 students, am I meeting with these students at the frequency and in the modalities that work for them? What are the trends? It helps make everyone that's connected with the program better at their job. And I've seen it happen over and over again. Actually, one of our former advisors who then moved up into a director role, he just wrote to me. He's relocating, and he just sent the nicest note saying how much he enjoyed kind of working in the program because he really grew and kind of became a leader. But it's very empowering for the individuals themselves to understand how the work they're doing on a day-to-day basis really matters. And to be able to zero in on, okay, where's there room for improvement? So that's a very critical piece of the program is not just resting on your laurels, but kind of knowing like, okay, these things are going well, but here's a group of students, or here's an area where we could improve. So I feel like it's something that it's very multifaceted. It's very important from a telling the story to outside actors. It's important to be able to tell the story within an institution, to be able to say, here's how we're moving the needle. But it's absolutely critical for the individuals who are working day to day with students to know, like, am I making a difference here? Am I doing what I was hired to do in the first place? And they feel empowered and better about themselves when they do it. I've seen it happen over and over again. And I'm very proud of that we've helped kind of create an army, if you will, of data-minded practitioners at CUNY, at SUNY, and in other places too.
Yeah, certainly here too. I told you, Ben, she was one of our people.
No kidding. You're just like speaking my language right now.
Right? Okay, I'm coming down to Knoxville to work with you guys.
Yeah,
Come hang out with us. I would love that. I think it's so important. And I just want to put a fine point on something that you talked about at the end of that, which I think is critical, is there's data for storytelling. There's also data for action, right? And I think that we oftentimes like see data and we're like, well, that's really interesting, right? As practitioners in this space, but we feel so tied to programs that have always existed or the way it's always been done. And yet, we see things and we're not like, oh, I talk about this all the time. I think my biggest, I have lots of things that I wish would shift in the world in which we work in. But one of them is like when you know something's not working for students and you keep doing it anyway. This is a really dynamic way of thinking about it. Can you dig on that, Donna? Because it's like, I think it's so important.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say, besides the success of ASAP and ACE, one of the things I'm extremely proud of is as we would look at data and see things and say, oh, we need to fix this, we need to address that, we would frequently kind of share it up with kind of the institutions and say, hey, we're seeing this. Maybe this is something that needs to change for all students. So I'll give you an example. So when ASAP and ACE started, of course, the majority of students that came to CUNY community colleges, as is the case across the country, frequently had some remedial or developmental education needs. So we said, okay, that's all right if you have, one or two, that's fine. We'll let you into the program, and we'll support you. But you have to take those courses immediately and continuously. And what we noticed was, without that intentional advisement, the students were not doing that. And it was not kind of the culture at some colleges that Ben or Donna, who might have a remedial math need, no one was advising them, you have to take those classes right away. So we put into place kind of a set of data monitoring where we would say, all right, you admitted 100 students that had some developmental education need. Did they enroll in those classes immediately? And then how did they do to get out, and monitoring kind of their progress and to ensure that they got out of those classes within the first year. No one was kicked out if they didn't, but we carefully monitored and supported it. So when we kind of surfaced this to kind of university leadership and said, hey, at many colleges, students that have remedial needs are not required to take those classes immediately and continuously. And that is a huge problem. They're going to run out of financial aid. They're going to be shut out of classes where they need these classes to be, under their belts. And so that shifted and became something that the university kind of put out as policy. So that's an example of something that kind of just existed and was not being addressed in any way, shape, or form. So an example like that or the idea that you should monitor that students are completing their financial aid forms, not just at the onset, but very regularly, and monitoring that they keep their financial aid. That's another kind of, I would say that's a somewhat unresolved story, but certainly we monitored that extremely closely in the program. But I was very, very happy to see that the kind of progression through developmental or remedial coursework, which is something kind of bubbled up and out of ASAP, became something that the university kind of embraced. And it was through our kind of use of data that was discovered.
Yeah, it's relationships and data. I mean, in my mind, that's the magic equation, right? Like, do you have relationships with students where you can see these patterns bubbling up?
Yes.
And what's the data telling you on the other side of that pattern? I love that example. I think it's so great. So what's the future, Donna? Like, you've just been kicking tail for so long now. Like, what's next?
So I was thrilled to join Chancellor King's senior SUNY university team as Senior Vice Chancellor for Student Success. 2.5 years ago, this role didn't exist. And I just jumped at the opportunity to work with him. He's such a visionary. So one of the major projects that we said we wanted to initiate here at SUNY, besides this kind of comprehensive office that looks at kind of the holistic trajectory of students moving into and through SUNY colleges, was we should bring ASAP and ACE, the baccalaureate model of ASAP, to SUNY. So we were incredibly thrilled that the governor and the legislature, through the SUNY Transformation Fund, which we received 2 years ago, allowed us to launch a formal replication of ASAP and ACE across 25 SUNY colleges. So we enrolled just under 4,300 students last year. Right out of the gate, one semester in, very strong academic momentum indicators in the form of credits attempted and earned and retention. We're also rigorously evaluating the program and fully replicating the model that has been so successful at CUNY and elsewhere across our colleges. It's launched at 13 community colleges and 12 state-operated baccalaureate granting colleges. We're very fortunate that the budget that came out provided fully baseline funding to allow us to grow the program to 7,000 students this fall. We'll be at 34 colleges serving those 7,000 students on the pathway to get to 10,000 by next year. So we could not be more thrilled that we have the support of our governor, our legislator, our campus leaders, the enthusiasm across the university, from the presidents all the way down, has been tremendous. We had way more colleges that wanted to participate than we had money to support this fall, but we will get everybody in by next year. So incredibly exciting work. And I would just say that kind of this early success of ASAP and ACE, we're also going to be launching a broader academic momentum campaign to think outside of a program context about how we can improve retention and completion rates. And that will launch in the fall. So that's one of my office's other big projects that's on the horizon, in addition to kind of a broad focus on improving the outcomes of transfer students within the system.
Yeah.
So lots going on, but we're very excited about this broad expansion of ASAP and ACE. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be part of SUNY. I'm so proud to work for Chancellor King. What an amazing team here. But when I talk to people like you and Ben and others around the country, I'm always reminded, like, we are a community, even though it's a big country, this community of kind of like-minded folks that are about removing barriers for students and thinking about their future economic prospects and limitless potential. It really warms my heart to know that there's people like you guys in Knoxville and other places around the country that are doing the same thing as well.
Absolutely. For the uninitiated, ASAP and ACE, what are the main supports that you're expanding to these other institutions, just for those that are unaware?
Absolutely. So it's a comprehensive degree completion program that provides a set of fully integrated resources and supports to students to help them enroll full-time, gain and maintain academic momentum, and graduate on time. So high-touch integrated advisement from start to finish, a set of financial resources, a cost of attendance award, a monthly travel and food stipend, textbook support, and this sense of integration and belonging, that you're part of a cohort of fellow learners that you're going to travel through with. So ASAP focuses on helping students graduate within 2 to 3 years at the associate level. ACE focuses on helping students graduate within 4 years with bachelor's degree, or 2 years if they're a transfer student. And so it's all about removing barriers and helping students feel supported and integrated so they can graduate on time.
Wonderful. Thank you. We are all about that too. Complete is so similar to that, and something that all of those priorities are right at the top of our list as well. So thank you for your time and for sharing with us. I think this was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. And I'm so impressed at the work that Tennessee Achieves continues to do. I am always watching from afar. So no, someone sitting in Albany is monitoring what you guys are doing.
I love that. Well, I, as I said up top, I'm coming to see you, especially now that you said that you're stepping into transfer work intentionally. We've been working through a pilot here, there, and have seen some really amazing progress. Now it's time to scale it. You know this, right? Like, how do you take something that works for a small group of students and ensure it works for all students? So
wonderful. Oh, that's great.
I got more learning from you, Donna, so I'm coming for you.
Oh, that's great. Well, I want to know more about that, because you guys are movers and shakers for sure.
Well, thank you so much. This has been it's so good to see you, my friend.
Likewise.
And thanks for sharing all your goodness and your smarts, really with, to your point, our community. So SUNY and CUNY students have been so fortunate, but you really have inspired so many of us, myself at the top of the list. So I'm a number one fangirl here. So I appreciate you spending time with Ben and me today.
Absolutely. My pleasure, guys. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of At Scale, the Tennessee Achieves podcast. Each conversation is a step toward a deeper understanding of how we can collectively expand opportunity and increase post-secondary access and success for all students in Tennessee. To continue following this work, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Subscribing ensures you never miss an episode, and your rating or review helps others discover the stories and insights that we'll share.
Together, we're not only supporting students, we're building Tennessee's future workforce. Thank you for listening.